Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to something else. Something else, Daddy.
This is Nicole Matano, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
Welcome to episode number 212 of Something Else. Feast your feast your ear holes on this week's episode. Your eye holes. You should be feasting your eye holes on this week's episode. The episode that doesn't have video. We're talking about NWA Title Nonstop Action, episode number 55 from July 23rd, 2003, 22 years ago today. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is Cyndi. Cyndi, how the hell you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It's been a good week. I mean, All In was good. And finally the belt's off Mox. And I just came back from a date and it went well. And
Sounds good.
Yeah, and oddly enough, we have a good episode of Impact ? Or NWA TNA ? Like, it was so good I thought I was watching an episode of Impact from 2005.
Honestly, I thought Vince Russo must have been sick or something. He accidentally stumbled into a good episode of a pro wrestling TV show this week. Oh, Lord. And it's funny because before I watched this show, I watched the first day of the G1 this morning, and I'm like, oh man, after all this good wrestling, I'm gonna be just really fucking pissed off when I have to watch TNA. And well, I was not really fucking pissed off while watching TNA for once. And in fact, between the two shows, I think the worst match between the two of them was Evil and Callum Newman on the G1 show.
Has Evil lost quite a few steps?
I mean, I don't know if he ever had a few steps, but it's like, the whole House of Torture thing is bad to begin with. But then it's like him and Callum Newman, it's like, it's easy to blame Evil for this one, but Callum Newman they were on different pages of different books in different libraries in different cities. He went down at one point over the threat of a knee to the stomach.
Ooh, that's pretty bad.
Yes. And there was a couple other spots in there where it's like, okay, this was not the highlight of a G1. Let's just say that. But hey, one show down, 18 to go. And odds are I'll enjoy watching the next 18 G1 shows probably more than I'll enjoy watching the next 18 TNA shows as an overall grade.
Can confirm.
I mean, we have that Super X show coming up like either the last week of August or first week of September.
First week of September.
I can almost guarantee that's going to be a goddamn good show right there. So, But I guess for now, let's dive into this. The news this week in the Wrestling Observer newsletter is not a whole lot of it. In fact, one we did mention last week, and that is that Tracy is currently out of TNA due to visa issues. And now, in case you're curious, we're talking about the immigration stuff and not that Tracy has bad credit.
Today I learned that Tracy Brooks is Canadian.
You just learned that Tracy's Canadian?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, Tracy's Canadian. And then the other big news, Amazing Red is out of action right now with a messed up knee. He had to pull out of several indies over the weekend and also this TNA show. And apparently, it said that he called it the last minute to pull out of TNA. And although looking over the show, I don't know what his spot would have been. Like because like most of this stuff was booked or announced a week ahead of time. So like unless he was just coming in to do interference somewhere, like he was probably just coming in to do an explosion match, and that obviously is not the most important thing in the world.
Probably Explosion, because there's one spot I think he would have been in, and I think he dodged a bullet.
I mean, the only thing I could think of, like, because he already took on uh whatchamacallit, Elix Skipper last week, was he
Yeah,
may have been in the handicap match against the legend.
that's why I
And
said dodged a bullet.
yeah. If that is the case, he managed to avoid the continuation of the worst push of all time. Because yeah.
I wouldn't be so sure. I think there are worse pushes than Legend.
No, I'm talking about Amazing Red's push.
Oh yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for him to tell us why he attacked Raven that one week.
Well, because Raven attacked him the other week
Okay, fine. I'm still waiting for Raven to tell us why he attacked Amazing Red.
because he wanted to create chaos.
My guess is Red giving him the infrared through a table turned him babyface. You know, he took a shot to the head and he's like, huh, maybe maybe I should be a good guy now.
Also, him going after Russo doesn't hurt.
Oh, Vince Russo. Let's just get into it here. And I'll tell you why I was fixing to be pissed off about this show. The opening match of the show, it was AJ Styles with Trinity versus D'Lo Brown in match one of their three-match series. And this match was a pinfalls only match. Because they set this up last week where the first fall would be pinfall, second fall would be submission, third fall would be a ladder match if they get that far. And they announce at the beginning of this match that Vince Russo and only Vince Russo is banned from ringside. He's banned from interfering in this match. And I'm like, okay, great. So not one of the actual wrestlers, the biggest badass, the guy that we have to protect everyone from, once again, is the guy with the biggest fucking ego in wrestling, Vince Russo. And you would have thought Triple H had a giant ego and still does. You thought Jeff Jarrett had a giant ego around this point. Nope, Vince Russo, undoubtedly biggest ego in wrestling. Um, so this was a good match. It they obviously had to wrestle a couple more times, so it's not like they were going to go out there and have a 30-minute Mac Classic.
Nope.
But D'Lo out wrestled AJ, including blocking Hurricane and going for a Styles Clash. AJ turned that into an ankle lock, which D'Lo reversed. Now they did try to make sense out of this, basically saying that, hey, I know submissions don't count here, but you're wearing people down. They're going to wrestle again in about an hour. So hey, you want to injure a body part to possibly make the second fall a little easier.
It's
Um,
clever.
A- AJ used an Alabama slam to take over. Minutes later, D'Lo threw AJ out of the ring, and while the referee checked on AJ, Trinity necked D'Lo on the top rope. AJ hit a springboard 450 for a near fall. D'Lo did a middle rope sack of shit slam, but Trinity distracted the referee. So Sonny Siaki ran down and gave D'Lo the Siakalypse now, and AJ got the pin. And I'm like, if this is going to be a preview of the rest of the fucking night, I'm going to throw something at my TV. We are not allowed to have nice things, apparently. And I gave this match a 5.5 out of 10.
I liked it a little more than you did. I thought the mat action was a little bit better, so I gave it a 7 out of 10.
How dare you, son of a bitch! I thought we had an agreement that we have to always agree on everything. Isn't that what makes a podcast good, is when the two hosts agree on everything?
No,
Oh. In that case, continue.
the I thought the action was a little bit better than you were leading on. I mean, I haven't seen these two have a bad match
I
per
didn't say
se.
this was a bad match. Just, you know,
Actually,
I
I'll
didn't think it
take
was
it
a
a step.
great
I haven't
match.
had them. I haven't seen them do a mediocre match. We'll say, and this was good. It was quality for what the 10 minutes that they gave it.
Retag.
Yeah, and
And
I'm wasn't too fond of the overwhelming interference by Sunny Siaki, but I kind of see what they're going for. You know, they're kind of setting up Sunny Siaki versus D'Lo Brown. So
which
yeah,
which I mean we already got, and D'Lo had beaten him every time they wrestled. Now, I had watched this immediately after I finished G1, so I went from Tanahashi versus Taichi to this, and at this point it's now like 7:30 in the morning, and even though I'd slept for about 5 hours last night, I was like, you know what, time to go take a nap. And so I laid down and slept for 4 more hours. So I was nice and well rested for the rest of this show. Let's just say that. Um, Tanay and West preview the rest of the card, and then Elix Skipper has a new theme. And believe me, it is a good thing this theme does not last too long. I wrote, in fact, I'd be surprised if this thing lasts until next week, because it is just it. I mean, you can say that, okay, sometimes TNA themes have the same issue that WCW themes had, that they can be a bit generic. And this, I think Skipper was more involved with the creation of this song, but it was not a good pro wrestling theme song. It was like, remember when R-Truth tried to change his theme song when he was a babyface in like 2010, and it got over like a sack of shit, and they had to change it back to the What's Up theme?
yeah, it was terrible.
That's what this is reminding me of, this Elix Skipper theme. And not saying that Elix Skipper has some amazing all-time classic theme, but even his generic singles Elix Skipper theme is better than this. Um, so before the match, Skipper took the mic and reiterated that he is pound for pound the best athlete in the world and made an open challenge. And suddenly on the screen appeared the words Mad Mikey. And no one in the crowd knew what the hell this meant. They showed footage of Bobby Knight throwing a chair across the basketball court at the time with Indiana, um, and it just kept flashing Mad Mikey. And I'm thinking that they thought this was going to be a bigger reveal than it was, because even when Crash Holly came out, because that's who it is Crash Holly, the crowd, they're like, oh, it's Crash Holly. And then they went back to like, okay, and moving on with their lives. Um,
I have
Now,
a note here, and I want to see if this is true for you.
okay.
This reiterates some stuff that we talked about last week. Bad Mikey was supposed to debut last week against Edward Chastain. Dodged a bullet there. Instead of bigging up Mad Mikey on his own, he put over his WWE accomplishments, proving that WWE is the real big leagues again. Arya
See,
rants.
now this is not, I would not complain about that. I have a complaint later, but I wouldn't complain about this because this is Mad Mikey's debut. So of course you're going to put over that he's a former WWF Tag Team Champion. Hell, if they would not have mentioned that that Mad Mikey has a win over Mick Foley and The Rock, I would have been pissed off because that is something to mention. That is a big fucking deal. And sure, WWF didn't really make it seem like a big deal because they, ignored it the minute that it happened. But hey, it's a fact. It happened, regardless of the circumstances surrounding it. So I like that they mentioned that. And yeah, you can't bring out Crash Holly and not mention that he's a 48-time hardcore champion. You would have been It would have been insane for them to pretend that he was a completely different person.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, we'll get to the complaint later on that I have in a similar circumstance, but for this, no, no, this is what they should have done. Like when Jeff Jarrett came out, for the first TNA show, it's like, oh, he's a former WCW champion. It's like, okay, here's some credibility to the guy in case somehow you stumbled onto the show and had no idea who the hell he was. It's like, it's okay to mention past accomplishments. It's when you're like, okay, these past accomplishments are better and bigger than their TNA accomplishments. If Elix Skipper came out and said, and Elix Skipper was NWA Tag Team Champion for 6 months and all this, and if all they said was, oh, here's Elix Skipper, he's a former WCW Cruiserweight Tag Team Champion, I would have thrown something at the TV. But this, we're good.
All right, fine.
So I guess this
Decent.
is a spot Crash did in WWE, but I have no memory of it. He teased climbing to the top rope, but changed his mind and instead pulled Skipper to the far other side of the ring. And then he did what was apparently called the hop splash, where he dives from the top rope about halfway across the ring, lands on his feet, and then immediately jumps up and does a normal standing splash to his opponent. In the interest of fairness, it did pop the crowd despite how preposterous it is. The finish saw Elix try to use his scale, but after a brief tug of war, the referee got it, and Skipper won with the catatonic. Would people please stop stealing Chris Harris's move? This I thought was all right. I gave it a 3.0 out of 10. Mikey will be here until October, but most of his matches are on Explosion. I'm sure he's going to be in some random skits at some point, but he has 4 matches on pay-per-view that we're going to see, and most of his other matches are on Explosion. Like I said, I gave it a 3.0 out of 10, and I guess I realized it, but didn't really realize it until I bothered to look it up. He dies in November.
Yeah.
So it's like between him and Kurt Hennig, TNA needs to stop signing former WWE guys.
How did Crash die again? What was it? Heart attack?
What was that?
How did he die again? Was it a heart attack or something?
I think it might have been an OD.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I know he was sleeping on Stevie Richards' couch. And when it happened. But yeah.
God, if there's anybody who seems to be cursed with stuff like that, it is Stevie Richards and acts that he was associated with.
Indeed.
Any
thoughts on
4.5. I thought it was fine. It was fine for what it was. I mean, we're still building Skipper up to something, but not really.
Skipper's basically on TV every week because his teammates aren't here. And it's like, and we'll get to the Daniels thing later, but it's like, I like the fact that they aren't just ignoring that these people exist for a month while Daniels is in Japan and Low-Key has his injury. It's like, you know what? Let's put Skipper on TV doing some undercard X Division matches, and we'll bring in we'll tape a dozen Chris Daniels interviews to sprinkle throughout the next month of TV. So it's like, I don't call this a bad thing. I call it a win because it's like, you know, we've moved on from this, lately within like the last 5 years. But for the longest time, if you weren't on TV every week in some way or fashion, the fans accepted that you meant nothing. It's the WWE 3-week push where you're on TV for 3 weeks, getting wins, and then you disappear for a month. So we're at that period where it's like if you're not on TV every week or close to it, you're nothing. So, I'll say, hey, it's a good thing they're using Skipper week after week. Because even if they didn't have all these Daniels promos, by having Skipper week after week, you get constantly reminded him and Daniels are former tag team champions. Him, Daniels, and Low-Ki are Triple X, yada, 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 yada. And yeah, we go from there.
All right.
From
We get
there,
a
we get a video. Mhm.
I was gonna say we get a big Legend and Jeff Jarrett video package highlighting the chaos that both of them have been going through.
Yeah.
As far as video packages go, it was one of them.
This was certainly the most recent video package that aired on this show.
Yeah,
And and I got mad at the beginning of the show because they took away my favorite part of the show, which is the 5 minute previously on TNA video package because it always gives me five fewer minutes to watch. And then they went ahead and had a good show, so I had to delete that line. So Legend came out to the ring. He had the Goldberg entrance. And he told black shirt security to keep an eye out for Jeff Jarrett. He came out of the dressing room that is right next to Abyss's lair underneath the steps, which makes sense because it may be the only real dressing room in the entire asylum.
yeah.
Legend came to the ring and cut a promo on Jarrett before his match, saying that Jarrett is neither smarter nor faster than him, and Jarrett does not deserve an NWA title match. He complained about having to hire the black shirt security guys, and I'm like, well, I guess he can't afford the red shirt security guys. He reiterated that their job is to keep Jarrett from coming to the ring from bell to bell. And he kept saying that over and over again to the point that the dumbest person in the audience knew exactly what was going to happen. And that is not necessarily a bad thing,
No.
you know?
And there's one other thing that we need to bring up about this promo. The
And
fake
that
ass
is.
New York accent is gone.
Yeah, I think that was because at the end of the day, I think that was only because of the skit where him and Russo were imitating Russo and Jarrett. So even though they did a shitty job explaining that at the time, that was what the whole point of that fake accent was.
And it's also more of a I'm gonna beat up these stupid Americans because they're stupid, and I'm Canada, and I'm a great athlete. I'm from Canada, so
It's like they're
yeah, we get one of these
it's like they're
again.
almost trying to do U.S. versus Canada, except they're not really because it's not they don't have like all the Canadian talent in the world to be doing U.S. versus Canada. I mean, we're not going to get Joey Legend and Tracy Brooks running wild on the world here or anything.
Give it about 8 months, or give it a year.
Hmm. I think we're going to get Tracy Brooks and Joey Legend as Team Canada.
Um, Maybe throw in some of the best cruiserweights in Canada. Maybe a guy who can possibly be a world champion. Uh,
And maybe a jacked up steroid guy.
yeah, those are always good. We got to have a loud ass manager carrying something Canadian. What's Canadian? A hockey stick. Yeah, that's it. Loud ass Canadian carrying a hockey stick with four guys leading the charge. One guy being a
Well,
devoted X Division wrestler, two guys that you put in the tag team, and one jacked up muscle dude.
and Johnny Devine until he got didn't he get into like a fight where he got stabbed or something,
I
and that's why he
think that's the
disappeared for
case.
like years.
Yeah, and then he comes back in 2006 and doesn't. He teams up for
Ish.
yeah because he teams up with Team Canada for World X Cup 2006, and then immediately afterwards he becomes buddies with Alex Shelley.
Yes, it's when Alex Shelley was doing the paparazzi gimmick, and then that somehow led to him teaming with not he didn't team with Raven, he teamed with Kazarian and Michael Shane as Raven's new flock, and then it was
Serotonin, I think, was the name of that.
yeah, and then they brought in then they did the Team 3D versus X Division feud, where then he became a member of Team 3D and won the X Division title while they were simultaneously trying to end the X Division. Literally, he was the champion of a division that they were trying to get rid of, which makes all the sense in the world, doesn't it?
they've done this angle many times, and that's not even the worst one.
It was an interesting idea to try to, elevate the machine guns and Jay Lethal. That was also when the machine guns got heat because they didn't want a blade, and it was considered a big fucking deal that they refused a blade during the match with Team 3D, and so they got buried because of it.
And then Jay Lethal unlocks his inner macho king Randy Savage and bullshits his way to winning a essential 3-on-1 handicap match.
Yes, which was only like the third or fourth time that they gave Jay Lethal the half-ass to the moon push. By the way, Legends opponents were Matt Sydal and Altar Boy Luke, aka Luke Hawks. So I guess the champ's heat for kicking out of his elimination a couple weeks ago didn't last long since he got booked again. Legend at one point was literally wiping the mat with Altar Boy Luke's face. Jeff Jarrett came out with a guitar, and I'm thinking somebody forgot to put a chair in the aisle because he came out to sit down and there was no chair. So he's sitting awkwardly on the ramp, and he's like, okay, just let the match keep going. Um, it distracted Legend just long enough to give Luke and Seidel a couple seconds of offense. Legend gave them both a backpack stunner and then pinned them both after a pair of stone cutters, which is a move that goes way too fast to really break down what it actually is. It's more like a twisting neck breaker thingy majigger. So this was the worst match on the show, but I mean, it was designed to be the worst match on the show because it's just your weekly enhancement match.
Yeah.
2.0 out of 10.
I gave it a 3 out of 10. I kind of like the stone cutter. I don't know why. I think it looks pretty cool and it got the job done. However, we do have sad news. This is the end for Ultra Boy Luke and Matt Sydal on the weekly pay-per-views. Both of them would still wrestle on Explosion. Matt Sydal will do some things on Impact, but these wouldn't be things that, even if we did Impact simultaneously, we would not see Matt Sydal again.
And Matt Sydal comes back in like 2016, 2017, because I know he wins the X Division title and he's somehow teaming up with Josh Matthews when Josh was the heel lead announcer.
Oh, God. I forgot all about
Aren't,
that. Thanks for bringing
aren't,
that up.
hey, you're the one that keeps saying we need to do Impact. So, we want to
Well,
keep doing Impact. 13 years from now, we got to talk about Josh Matthews as the heel commentator.
can I diffuse the situation here a little bit when I said we should do Impact?
And that's
Because,
not even the worst of the Impact. Like when we get to, if we got to like 2008, 2009, 2010, oh my God, can you
no,
imagine us sitting here going through the Immortal angle for 9 months?
no. We wouldn't be going that far because what the plan was for when I said we should do Impact was only the Impacts finishing out the pay per view era. Because there are things that happen on Impact that affect the weekly pay per views, like title changes and stuff like that.
You should know I'm throwing stuff at you from a distance. Anyway, after the match, Jarrett
Well, too
confirmed that the
bad. You're
match
too far
was
away, too weak.
too weak, huh? Them's fighting words.
Unless you could throw
Eh,
something 3,000 miles away.
I got a car. I'll drive out to Seattle and hunt you down and run you over. And don't start with the I don't live in Seattle thing. Much like how all of Massachusetts is Boston, all of Washington is Seattle.
Boy, way to
Um,
downplay the good people of Spokane.
oh, come on. If we're going to say there's more than one city in Washington, there's more than one city in Massachusetts. But at the end of the day, when people think of Washington, they don't think of Spokane.
Well, depends what side of the political aisle you are.
After the match, Jeff Jarrett confirmed the match was over, so he hit the ring for this week's brawl with Legend. The red shirts ran down to break it up, and Don West said that this was Legend's plan. And if this was Legend's plan, why didn't he use the red shirts from the beginning?
He couldn't afford them, that's why.
Kevin Northcutt got physical with Jarrett, so Jarrett punched him in the head. And for like the first time since this angle began, this is the only part of the show with Jeff Jarrett and the Legend in it. Scott Hudson was randomly eavesdropping on a locker room argument AJ was having with Vince Russo. Why were they arguing? Who knows? A Christopher Daniels video aired, and like I mentioned earlier, I like that before Daniels went to Japan, they filmed a bunch of promos with him, so it wasn't just him disappearing off the show for a month.
No, and I love the symbolism that he had in this promo. You know, the lighter, it's saying that sports entertainment promotes growth and is sort of a light. Tradition snuffs out light. And if you believe in tradition, he snuffs out the light and is pretty much going to destroy your ass.
That's so nice of him to tell us that. Then we get our submissions only match in match 2, the 3-match series with AJ Styles versus D'Lo Brown. Now, obviously the finish of this match was obvious, but what I thought they could have done to add a little bit of doubt or a little bit of intrigue, even though you still knew what the fucking finish of the match was going to be, I think what they should have done was say that there would still be a third fall regardless of who wins. And if AJ were to win, then the title just wouldn't be on the line in the third fall. You know, they're still going to have their ladder match, but if D'Lo wants a title shot, he has to win this fall, or else the match, or else, you know, he still has to wrestle, but he doesn't get a shot at the title. So Sonny Siaki attacked D'Lo on the ramp. AJ ran out to clip D'Lo's knee to start the match, and they announced that Siaki was banned from ringside. Russo was shown watching from backstage. AJ continued to work over D'Lo's knee and slapped on the sharpshooter. D'Lo reversed it and essentially put on a sharpshooter with his knee on AJ's head for the tap out.
It was immediate tap out.
Yes. Now, I'm not going to lie and say that that wouldn't be a legitimately painful move, but A, the match went about 5 minutes, and B, AJ was on offense for approximately 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so it's not like D'Lo had the time to wear him down. Now, they tried to cover it up later on and say, oh, AJ was trying to cover it up because he has a ladder match later and he didn't want to possibly hurt himself. It's like, the thing is, like, there was like no offense on him the entire match before this. So like he's as close to 100% he's ever going to get. And B, he didn't even try to get to the ropes. He put the move on and AJ submitted immediately. Now, they could have played it up like a UFC finish where submissions can obviously happen out of nowhere because Ronda Rousey did not have to, you know, work over her opponent's arm for 5 minutes before putting on her armbar. Or that AJ is a bit of a pussy and, you know, oh, he's in a little bit of pains and, you know, he's tapping out to avoid the pain. But it's nothing like that. And it's like, it just, it ended up being like, this ended up being one of those 3-fall matches that if you had just a standard best 2 or 3-fall match, this is that middle fall that they get over with as quickly as possible so they could go on to the third fall. Because you know who's going to win the second fall based on who won first fall.
Right. And to diffuse that, Tenay and West actually did say that Styles tapped out quickly, probably to conserve energy.
I said that part before my second half of the rant. But yeah, this was a match that it needed to happen for the storyline. It didn't need to happen otherwise. I gave it a 4.0 out of 10.
I gave it a 6 out of 10. I thought the storyline was told really well.
So earlier this week, Mike Tenay was talking to TNA management consultant Don Callis, MBA. Callis said he's the first executive in pro wrestling who understands both the business side of pro wrestling and the pro wrestling side of pro wrestling. Callis said that our demographic here in TNA doesn't like hardcore wrestling, so we downsized the Sandman, disciplined New Jack, and aren't going to allow Jerry Lynn and Justin Credible to have a match like they did last week, and they aren't going to allow the women to do what they have been doing. Suddenly, Don Callis is the number one babyface in the world to me. And Tanay tried to say, "Oh, you're trying to say that, our fans, don't deserve what they want." And Callis is like, "The customer doesn't always know what they want," and it's a very Vince McMahon line. When especially in WWE around this time, where they'd have the heel GM go out and basically say, "You don't deserve to have this match," yada yada yada. Don Callis is basically being Vince McMahon to a smarmier degree.
I would say more like he is completely a corporate stooge, but more along the lines of I put this alongside around this time. This is going to take a little bit of time, but Game Show Network at 2003, around this time, was starting to dabble in, sorry, reality show and video game content. They had Chuck Woolery, Naturally Stoned, and they would have GSN video games on the weekend, which is just rehashed stuff from the UK video game channels. It wasn't that good. The target audience at GSN didn't want that. They wanted game shows. They wanted new episodes of Russian Roulette. They wanted new episodes of Lingo. They wanted to find more classics. Fast forward to roughly around the same time when Jarrett, spoilers for 8 months into 7 months into the future, where Don Callis gets complete control and is just a catalyst for the worst of Jeff Jarrett. That's when GSN becomes a complete reality channel.
Basically, in 7 months, Don Callis is going to have so much heat that Jeff Jarrett's going to basically link him with Callis because, again, nobody gives too many fucks about Jeff Jarrett. So, yeah. And then Callis is gone, like, pretty soon after, which is honestly hilarious when you look at how it all works out here over the next few months.
It kind of tracks with, I don't know, 2004 Don Callis stuff. I'd have to assume he was making tons more money doing his NBA stuff.
I mean, there's a reason that he left the wrestling business for like 20 years.
And then became a commentator and now probably one of the best managers in wrestling right now.
Basically, it wasn't 20 years, more like a decade or so, was when he when he went to Jericho's 25th anniversary show at Madison Square Garden with Lance Storm and Dr. Luther, and that's how they ended up doing the Lance Storm and Don Callis podcast, Killing the Town. And then that's how he ended up getting into TNA. That's how he ended up getting into, actually, no, that's how he got into New Japan, I think. That's then how he got into TNA and then got into AEW. So basically, Jericho inviting him to Madison Square Garden one day in 2015 is the reason why Don Callis is one of the most hated people on television right now. So if you don't like Don Callis, blame Chris Jericho.
You can blame Chris Jericho for a lot of things right now.
And Dean.
So we
So
get the
back to
bitch slap girls.
the new bitch slap girls, because
Yeah.
again, Tracy is dealing with her bad credit in Toronto. And so we have Nurse Veronica and Valentina. They challenge the cage dancers to a fight. Black Shirt Security were apparently the only people who watched that promo with Don Callis because they came running out to prevent this. Rudy Charles, who, reminder, is a referee, ran to the ring and led the crowd in a chant of "Let them fight." Somehow the security guys decided that Rudy Charles must be their new boss, so they let the cage dancers go. Trinity is like, bitch, I just saw Don Callis say no more of this shit, so I'm not going to allow this shit anymore. So Trinity ran down and gave Lollipop a power bomb while Rudy Charles was angry outside the ring. And we're supposed to be mad at Trinity, but it's Rudy Charles' fault. We weren't supposed to be allowed to have this anymore, and Rudy Charles ordered it to go on. So Trinity is a babyface now because she's trying to enforce what the management guy said we should be doing. And yeah, it's Rudy Charles' fault that Lollipop got laid out, which means that she's not doing her cage dancing later in the show. And she would have been had Rudy Charles not stuck his nose into it.
Go figure.
All right, so
Oh.
on to your favorite segment, I'm sure.
No! Hell no.
3 Live Crew is in the hood, and BG James, I'll be honest, when they showed like a preview, or not really a preview, but like a still shot at one point, and I thought BG James had on blackface, and I was ready to rip on this even more than I'm about to, but he didn't. It may have just been like, I don't know, they put a filter on it or something before they stuck it up there.
Yeah, it was a pretty
But
bad filter.
he interviewed some African American people asking if they were packing heat or buying 40s. And you see, it's funny because he's asking about stereotypes. And apparently, TNA being TNA did not bother to like go over anything with anybody. Like they were just taking cameras up and sticking them in people's faces leaving the store and asking him this shit. And apparently at one point the guy in the first part where they asked if he was packing, like they legitimately almost had to call the police on this guy because he was really fucking pissed off and was ready to start a fight. And so instead of, just I don't know, before you stick a camera in some guy's face and ask if he's having a gun, say, "Hey, guy, do you want to be part of a skit? And what we're doing is yada, 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 yada." And he can be like, "Sure," or "Nah, brah." So instead, because he apparently, I don't know if it was him or the other guy, but one of them fucking told BG James to suck it. And it's like, okay, we couldn't have pulled this guy aside and had him say a TNA catchphrase. He had to do a WWE catchphrase. And I don't even know what a TNA catcher would even be at this point.
I
Like, because
think
James
what
Storm
I
hasn't said
think
sorry about your damn luck 8 million times yet, but they could have had something to get over TNA and not tell you that, oh, look, the big stars are in WWE.
I was thinking, what was BG James' catchphrase that he tried to get over? Get it, got it, good.
Well, that wasn't until 3 Live Crew breaks up and they redo the New Age Outlaws.
No, he said that before when
Well,
he first came in.
well, apparently it got over so well that they dropped it to an insane degree.
To be honest, I'd rather have him say "suck it" than have a TNA catchphrase. Apparently, there's sorry about your damn luck, but he hasn't said it enough yet for it to really catch on. But that's it.
But they could have still told the guy, turn the camera off and say, okay, tell this guy sorry about your damn luck. He doesn't have to know why he's saying that. He doesn't have to understand it. Just fucking say it and we'll move on with our lives. But anyway, the climax of this is BG goes to a beauty supply store and gets made over as a pimp and who's wearing 2-inch heels. Okay, then.
We call them lifts in the industry.
Yes. And
What
there's
wa-
one person who needs to be taller. It's BG James. Yeah, this is
this was bad.
yeah.
I can't wait for
It,
these segments to end. I mean, they wrestle,
it,
but they wrestle on Explosion. Couldn't we just shunt this to Explosion and have him wrestle 3 people? Like, it could be another squash match that we could say 2 out of 10 to. I don't care. It takes the same amount of time as this.
I don't want to watch that either. So we cut to the ring where main event Glenn Gilberti is calling Jeremy Borash into the ring. As you recall last week during the segment that didn't air, Jeremy Borash slapped Glenn Gilberti. And Gilberti said he's not going to hurt JB, and instead Gilberti told Borash he'd make a great valet for America's Most Wanted and bought him a cowgirl hat and a dress. Borash slapped his hand away, so Gilberti tried ripping Borash's clothes off, which led to America's Most Wanted making the save, stripping Gilberti to his underwear, and then getting attacked by Simon and Swinger, which somehow meant that their title match was starting now. Did the world need to see Disco Inferno in his underwear?
Oh, it was going to be worse than that. They almost stripped him completely bare, and nobody wanted to see Glenn Gilberti's disco stick.
Wouldn't like the whole point, because like, what was the point of him buying a dress or a skirt or whatever it was? I figured the point would be they knocked down Disco Inferno and they put the dress on him, and that's when he runs to the back and Simon and Swinger attack to start the match or whatever. It's like, you know, we got, the 4 seconds of a comedy bit with them stripping Borash, stripping Borash and then stripping Gilberti, and we didn't even really get the payoff of it.
No.
Then we
It
get
was embarrassing.
we get our World Tag Team Title match: America's Most Wanted versus Simon Diamond and Johnny Swinger. They were on different pages at the beginning of this match, specifically Swinger and Storm. They were a bit off here.
Yeah, they were.
Now, Cyndi, you know, every week I bitch and moan that every America's Most Wanted match is constantly 2-on-1 on the babyface with 2 heels in the ring, and the referee constantly stopping whatever babyface is waiting patiently for a hot tag, from interfering and helping out his partner. Well, this week they finally got it fucking right. They double teamed, but they double teamed behind the referee's back. They got out on the count of 5. It was an actual tag team match and not the shenanigans that normally happen. Now, with that said, once again, Harris and Storm, in their heads, they know that, to have 2 hot tags, that really makes the match pop. Well, they don't realize that you need to have a certain length of time to have a fucking match with 2 good hot tags. And these matches that are going 8 to 9 minutes, it's not a fucking 2 hot tag match length. They need to watch a tape of Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit versus Edge and Rey Mysterio from No Mercy 2002 for a truly effective tag match with 2 hot tags. Because at this point, like, the crowd did not pop at all for James Storm's first hot tag because they knew what would happen, because they knew this happens in every AMW match where they get the first hot tag, whoever it is runs wild for 30 seconds and they get cut off for a second heat segment. And that's what happened here.
Mm-hmm.
So the finish saw AMW have Swinger beat with a death sentence, but Glenn Gilberti got his pants back on, and he ran in with a cowbell and attacked for the disqualification. In addition to the bull rope, Simon and Swinger had straps that they were using on both Harris and Storm. It was, I think it was like really the only real angle of the show. I mean, I guess we had Jarrett and Legend, but this was a big. This is the big angle on the show, and obviously setting up some sort of bull rope strap match between the two teams. Um, and up to this point, even with the roughness in the early part of the match, I thought this was the best match on the show up to this point. I gave it a 6.0 out of 10.
Exactly what I gave it for the exact same reason. 6.0 out of 10. We agree, like a good podcast should. If you don't know,
Melon Farmer.
If you don't know, I'm dripping with so much insincerity right now. But this is
Next.
I think we have what I've liked about the past few weeks of TNA is that we've actually got feuds building. I mean, like a month down the road, we could have a great card, like an end of summer bash. Like we have AJ, D'Lo finishing up their feud. Maybe Raven Shane Douglas ending their feud. MW versus Swinger and Diamond ending a feud. Like Young Skipper beating somebody. Like Gathering, you could have the Gathering versus the New Church.
They could build there. They could build the Skipper getting an X Division title match. They're not, but they could be.
Yeah. By the way, who the hell's the X Division champion right now? I forget.
Sabin.
See, he's busy feuding with Kazarian.
Yes, that's why I said he's not going to be feuding with
Right.
Skipper. So whatchamacallit? But yeah, the one good thing about this, and they're not really fully taking advantage of this, is like this was an idea they had when the Raven Jarrett thing happened, was to have a bunch of hot feuds, and then you built to where each week there's the final blow off to one hot feud that's been going on for a month. And it's like, well, hey, we've just watched Legend and Jarrett kill each other for 3 weeks. Now they're going to have a big blow off next week. And then the week after that, Sabin and Kazarian have their blow off. The week after that, AJ and D'Lo have their blow off, etc. This way, every week, you look at it like, oh my God, we're getting a big blow off of an angle that's been going on for at least a month. And while you have the big blow off this week of Jarrett and Legend, you start a feud that's going to blow off in 4 weeks. So you constantly have a 4-week cycle and you move on from there. And it's like, so every week seems like, oh my God, we have something big happening versus, well, no, every week we got to have, 5 big somethings happening. And when you have 5 big somethings happening, nothing is a big something.
Right. Backstage, we have Scott Hudson interviewing Father James Mitchell. I love the visualism you get from Father James Mitchell. Like, he wants to rip his own skin off so he could make it into a noose and hang Raven with it. Yes. That's pretty metal.
I gotta say, I like every individual person, but Jim Mitchell with Shane Douglas is just weird.
Yeah.
And I get what they're going for, especially because TNA never seems too eager to be bringing in Jim Mitchell for whatever reason. And this was Raven and Shane Douglas going to them, basically saying, hey, let's use Jim Mitchell again. Let's bring him in and yada, yada, yada. And so he's with their angle, because if you take him away from their angle, it's like, I don't know about this kid. Like, honestly, his best use is in a couple of years when he's with Abyss. But that's not until the internet days of Impact. But we go from here to a 6-man tag match, which is Shane Douglas, Slash, and Primetime Brian Lee with Jim Mitchell versus Raven, Julio Dinero, and CM Punk. So yes, I'm back to watching Primetime Brian Lee on 2 different shows. And for more on the upcoming stripper match between Primetime Brian Lee and Tammy Sitch versus Dirty White Boy and Dirty White Girl, where only one person on the planet wants the baby faces to lose, that being my co-host. Check out the Smoky Mountain Show tomorrow. It's great. So the match started with a wild six-way brawl, which broke down into a tag team match. Shane wouldn't get into the ring with Raven, which is, of course, what everyone wanted. So good old school heat. They got the heat on Julio, and Brian Lee slammed him back first into the ring post. Raven eventually got the hot tag and fought Shane towards where the SCX locker room used to be. There was now a random blue curtain in front of it, which was screaming angle alert, angle alert, angle alert, when suddenly a random person in a white hoodie and a mask reached out and dragged Raven into the SCX locker room. Now, I don't know who this really was. I think I know who it ends up being revealed as, but with the size of who it was and how Raven was grabbed, I'm assuming they used Abyss for this. There was somebody much larger than Raven, and the way he grabbed Raven, it's a very Abyss way to grab somebody.
Yeah, that tracks.
But I think just because I know he debuts in a few weeks or maybe a few months, I think we're supposed to believe that it ends up being Vampiro.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Vampiro.
Well, maybe it's Mr. Wrestling 5. Raven
Or since it's
eventually
supposed to be Vampiro, it's supposed to be Luchador de Amigo Cinco.
Friendly Lucha 5.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Did you mean Senor Lucha 5?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Raven eventually crawled back out covered in blood, which, in my opinion, made this an overbooked finish. Which at the very least is the closest we get to an overbooked finish on the show, because I think it's like Raven Raven was disappeared into the SCX locker room, and that should have been it until the promo he cuts here in a few minutes. But and then it should have just done the finish with Julio or Punk. Instead, Raven drags himself back to the ring. They have a table set up in the corner. For some reason, they bumped the referee. I don't even know why, because it's not like the referee was in any hurry to disqualify anybody. Um, Raven gave Slash and Primetime Brian Lee DDTs, but then, thanks to more interference by Jim Mitchell, Shane speared Raven through the table that was stacked up in the corner for the win. The match was pretty much exactly what it should have been because, again, no one's watching Shane Douglas versus Raven expecting a catch as catch can wrestling match. And I gave it a 4.0 out of 10.
Trying to remember what I gave it. I gave it a 5. I liked it a little bit more than you did. But we have the same reasoning as to why we gave it the same grade. I honestly, the mysterious hand makes sense because it's supposed to be, you know, evil spiritualistic nonsense, which is what James Mitchell is. So I get it. But it's, well, speaking of spiritualistic nonsense,
Speaking of spiritualistic nonsense,
it is the fourth and final part of Staying Behind the Paint. I thought this went 5 weeks, but only went 4.
it was the longest part of the entire fucking 4 parts, and it was all about Sting being a Christian now.
Which
So
I
yeah,
get.
I, I'm convinced that there's a reason they stopped plugging these things. Like, it's like the wrestling parts, the part that you'd actually want to hear Sting talk about. It's like he barely had anything to say about anything, and then they get to the Christianity, which is always going to be a controversial subject when you put it in a wrestling context, and it's like, okay. I thought it was a little wacky because this is July. Actually, it was taped in June. It was taped, at the 1 year anniversary show, and he's here. And so it was weeks after Road Warrior Hawk died, and they're talking about how Sting goes to church with the Road Warriors and Nikita Koloff and Ted DiBiase, and it's like they don't even mention anything's amiss. So it's like, oh, Hawk is still going to church with Sting, 3 weeks after he died.
Right. And I think around this time, I'm trying to remember when Sting had his Trinity Broadcasting Network show. Because he
It was
literally
probably
had a
around
talk
this
show.
time.
Yeah. And he was also doing a lot of Christian movies as well. He is acting as Steve Borden. And there's a great podcast called God Awful Movies, and they talk about quite a few of Sting's movies. So give it a good listen.
They should always have with things like that. It's like, okay, so this is a made-for-TV movie. There's a reason it's made for TV. You know, they were not. No one on earth was putting this shit in the big screen. It's like if they were to sit here and talk about those like random TNT TV movies with Hogan, it's like, you know, it was designed to be hokey horse shit that was going to air on TV. You know,
Yeah, but this was hokey horseshit that got put on DVD and sold in Christian bookstores.
well, there is a certain subsect of Christianity that is very gullible, and you know, for further, obviously this is, a more of a parody, but for further proof of this, watch the South Park episode, Christian Rock Hard. Obviously, it's a parody, but it very much speaks to the easily manipulative subsection of Christianity that it's like, oh, this is Christian, so we're going to buy it. And we're going to buy it, in mass. And I'm not saying Sting had any, you know, had any ulterior motives to try to steal money from Christians. And he may
No.
have been very sincere and pure about his beliefs, but there are a lot of people otherwise. Like Mick Foley told a story in his book about Jake Roberts, and he asked Jake, "Oh, you must get a lot out of this." And Jake is like, "I get $500 plus gimmicks, brother." It's like, well, that's not what I was talking about, Jake. But it's like, at least in 1996, Jake obviously using his Christianity for the gullibility of people.
And plus, that was
And
his gimmick in WWE around this time.
it was his gimmick that he had cleaned himself up, but it's like it wasn't his gimmick that he was going on TV talking about how he was bilking the gullible for gimmick money at
But he
churches or
changed the name
whatever.
of his snake from Damien to Revelations.
To be fair, it was two entirely different snakes.
Yeah, he
It
was.
makes sense with the whole gimmick, but it's like, you know, you bring out an entirely different snake, a giant yellow snake, or whatever color you want to call that
Yeah, it was the giant
thing,
yellow
and it's
snake.
like, yeah, you cannot call it, you cannot call him Damien. At best, you call him Damien 2, but yeah.
Then,
Anyway, now that we pissed off the Christians, all three of them listening to the show, Mike Tenay is in the ring to introduce some legends, including Harley Race, Ricky Morton, Larry Zbyszko, and those two people who take the tickets out front. Um, I have some serious questions before we get into this, Cindy.
okay,
First of all, is Ricky Morton still a member of SCX? We
since
talked about
the
this.
group has disbanded by Russo, the answer is no.
No. He said that he kicked out Gilberti, Triple X, the Harrises, Mike Sanders, Sonny Siaki, and Desire out of SCX. He
I
did
think
not say he has the legal rights to the name SCX. He did not say at all that he kicked out the Rock and Roll Express.
I think
You're
he
just
even
supposed to
forgot the Rock
forget.
and Roll Express and the Hot Shots were in the group.
I wonder if the Rock and Roll Express remembers they were in SCX. Also, is Larry Zbyszko still AJ Styles' manager?
Since he's now managed by Vince Russo, probably not.
Maybe AJ Styles is just really bad with his money, and Larry Zbyszko's getting 10% of his money, and now Vince Russo's getting another 10% of his money, and suddenly AJ needs a raise because he keeps giving his money away to people. Now he's got Trinity in his corner, so Trinity's getting 10% too. AJ's giving away 30% of his money. It's like, it's like he's tithing his money away to managers instead. Oh, and Mortimer Plumtree. He might
No,
still
he
have a
lost.
contract.
No,
So there's
Mortimer
another
lost.
10%.
No, Mortimer lost the rights to Zbyszko. Remember?
I don't remember that, but fine. So AJ's already giving up 30% of his contract. Um, so at this point, the poor bastard needs a raise just because Mrs. Styles is at home getting pregnant with more and more children. And yeah. So by the way, speaking of AJ, what did you think about him at Slammiversary last Sunday?
I thought that AJ Styles was very good at Slammiversary. It's not like we're recording this the day before Slammiversary. We are
Nothing
doing
like
this
that.
live
No.
on a Wednesday.
Wednesday morning at midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific, when this gets posted. This is LIVE live. Like right now, it's 1:07 a.m. It is not
Yes.
9:07 p.m. on the East Coast on Saturday night. I can't believe what AJ Styles managed to do, when he was there at the Slammiversary show last Sunday. Man, that Long Island crowd, they popped big for AJ. So in all
Thank you,
seriousness,
AJ Chance abounded.
so this was all being done, by the way, to build up the introduction of the new director of authority. Kid Cash and Abyss came out during Harley's introduction, and
No, Abyss did not come out. Kid Cash just
he,
came out. Or was
no,
Abyss on stage?
Abyss was out there. He was mesmerized by the video screens on the stage because you could see him in the background.
Yeah.
Cash said he wanted to thank them all in the ring, and of course, it was all done sardonically. He called Race a disgrace in this industry for getting pinned 9 times. I'm not sure where his math came in because he said Harley is an 8-time former champion, but you're going to be best remembered as somebody who got pinned 9 times. Why did Harley get pinned 9 times to lose 8 world titles? Who knows? Anyway, Ricky Morton told him off. Kid Cash hid behind Sarah Jean or whatever the hell her goddamn name is.
Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee. And out came Eric Watts in a suit who gave Kid Cash a choke slam, and Cash landed on the microphone that he dropped in the ring. So when Cash was selling his back, I doubt that it was all selling. So Eric Watts, he doesn't really announce it very well, but essentially Eric Watts is the new director of authority. So yes, the Eric from WCW he kept talking about was him. And to be honest, I can't even complain because I don't think anybody was dumb enough to think that Bischoff was coming in.
Wait a minute. Bischoff's not coming in?
Not for a few years anyway.
All right. Well, lesson learned. This is fine. I mean, and we also build to something. Like, I'm assuming Ricky Morton's going to want revenge against Kid Cash for Kid Cash slapping him and just putting down the legends.
If we get Kid Cash and Abyss versus the Rock and Roll Express next week, I'll call it a win.
You take Kid Cash versus Ricky Morton?
Nope, I want the tag match.
All right, fine.
But next week, speaking of next week, Chris Sabin versus the debuting Michael Shane for the X Division title. And I can tell why Cyndi forgot that got announced, because that was the announcement of that match was immediately followed by an announcement of Jeff Jarrett versus the Legend in a double pole match. And it was easy to forget that X Division title match was announced because through the screen from the backstage area, you could hear Vince Russo orgasming over the thoughts of a double pole match. Do you think Vince Russo ever tried to see if he once tried to do the Judy Bagwell on a pole match, and then it turns out that even if Judy Bagwell was a small petite woman, how the hell are you going to get a full grown adult on a pole kind of thing? But do you think he was building up to a pole match where he put like Ivan Putski up on a pole?
That's anyway.
That's
Raven comes out alongside Julio Dinero and CM Punk, and it turns out that next week he's just getting warmed up, and we're gonna have a 6-man Clockwork Orange House of Fun match, or as he said it, a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. I'm so excited that I can't say the name of it properly.
Yeah, it's like we've officially reached, full circle on this fucking match because we always talked about for weeks, every time they have this match, the only person who can say the fucking name of it is Raven. And now Raven got it wrong. It's like there's a reason why they eventually just start calling it a House of Fun match because no one can fucking get the whole name of the match right. And Clockwork Orange really isn't that necessary for the match title.
No.
But now I'm assuming he meant a 6-man tag team Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. Except that's not even quite what he says either, because he said it was going to be a 6-way, which insinuates it's going to be in a singles match with 6 people. Now I'm confident, and I'm sure you're going to tell me that you already watched the next 12 episodes and that it's a 6-man tag, but the way he said it made you think it might be a 6-way single match.
Originally, when I saw it, I thought so too.
Yes. Well, then we go to the main event, which is the world champion AJ Styles with Trinity versus D'Lo Brown in a ladder match in match 3 of the 3-match series. And this is when I messaged Cyndi because Cyndi lied to me this week, and in a good way and a bad way. And it was the same way. She told me that this week was going to be the Sandman versus Edward Chastain in a match that I know happens because I'm sure they still have it, but TNA had a live stream thing going on at one point, and like it felt like every time I ever turned it on, they were airing this fucking Sandman versus Edward Chastain match from 2003. So I knew the match was happening. And the good news is the match did not happen this week. But the bad news is that because the match didn't happen this week and it hasn't happened yet, it's going to happen. So it's almost like I wish it would have happened this week so we could have gotten it the fuck out of the way. But unfortunately, much like how we didn't get any Just Incredible Jerry Lynn this week, we didn't get Chris Sabin, Frankie Kazarian, anything like that. We also did not get Sandman versus Edward Chastain. And perhaps the only time you'll ever hear somebody sad that they did not get the Sandman versus Edward Chastain.
We will talk about Edward Chastain next week because I have a great question
Who
to
the hell
ask you
booked
next
this
week.
shit?
Well, we know who booked this shit. It's a little bit deeper question than that.
It's a deeper philosophical question.
Yeah.
So remember last year when TNA seemed to have a ladder match on every fucking show for weeks? There's like the Ken Shamrock Sabu match, I think, one time. Then they had, I think they had Ken Shamrock versus Malice in a ladder match. They had the AJ Jerry Lynn low key ladder match. They had that random 6-way ladder match that ended with Sean Waltman walking out and winning the title. They had that Dusty Rhodes ladder match. This
Which
is
is
the first
still
ladder
one of the
match.
funniest things ever. Dusty Rhodes jumps off a ladder. Sure.
Technically.
Yeah.
Mind you, it was like at the height of the bottom ring rope, but still, he did it. Um, but yeah, this is like the first ladder match I think since the Dusty match.
Yeah, it
So
was.
hey, we're kind of not overexposing gimmicks all of a sudden. I don't know. I don't know. I guess this means Jeff Jarrett's winning the fight. Although you could argue if they're really fighting because, it's Jarrett's company and, you know, Russo's been known to take his ball and go home anytime he doesn't get his way. Anyway, so they started outside the ring and they replayed the spot that they did either last week or the week before where D'Lo Irish whips AJ into the barricade, but AJ is so fucking skinny that he does a baseball slide under the guardrail.
That's
which
still
is
a
a
great
level.
spot, though.
It is a level of skinniness that I have never seen and never will. Um, D'Lo then did a running, jumping crossbody off the ring steps, which I know is only like 2.5 feet high, but still, it was pretty fucking impressive.
Yeah.
Russo was again shown watching from backstage because again he's the big star of this show. Both took quite a bit of punishment in this match. D'Lo took an Irish whip into the ladder, which was set up in the corner, and then the ladder fell down perfectly onto D'Lo on the mat. So who's to say that inanimate objects can't run spots?
There
This
would be better wrestlers than Edward Chastain.
yes, this became a TLC match as the chair got used frequently, and then they set up two different tables outside the ring on opposite sides of the ring. And then we got two of the most insane spots in this show's history, which also pissed me off because these spots were so insane that they should be replayed for years to come. And the fact that they are not remembered tells exactly how often that they got replayed. So the first spot, D'Lo puts AJ on a table outside the ring. Now, let's be honest, the table is about as high as the ring apron. So, for all intents and purposes, AJ Styles is laying about as high as the mat. But D'Lo Brown had the ladder inside the ring, and he climbed to the tippy top of the ladder, which is, I'd say, at least 2 feet above the top rope, and he jumped off of it with a frog splash to AJ through the table, which was a fucking insane spot.
How D'Lo
Now,
did not blow a knee out on that spot is amazing to me.
Oh, that's not the how did D'Lo not get injured spot. The how did D'Lo not get injured spot happened next. So, remember WrestleMania 17? I think it was Bubba and Jeff Hardy were at the top of the ladder, and the ladder got pushed over, and they went crashing through a stack of 4 tables.
Yeah.
Remember when Edge and Undertaker did their TLC match, and they did the exact same spot, just with the Undertaker going through the stack of 4 tables?
Mm-hmm.
They tried to do that, but with one table and one D'Lo Brown.
Uh-oh.
And unfortunately, I don't know if they just didn't plot this out before the show properly so they knew where to put the ladder. I think part of the issue was that. I think part of the issue was they need a taller ladder to do the spot. And I think part of the issue was they only had the one table there to break D'Lo's fall, because this is one of those bumps where it doesn't matter how ridiculous it is that you're stacking up tables on tables on tables. You're doing that for safety purposes, you know? And so what happened was D'Lo was climbing the ladder, and I'm like, that was a big fucking bump for AJ to be jumping up and stopping this. So you kind of knew what was going to happen. Sonny Siaki runs down and pushes the ladder over. Now, this was not Sonny Siaki's fault. Sonny Siaki did his part perfectly. He led the ladder down. He didn't come down and shove it. He led the ladder down. The problem is, again, the ladder wasn't tall enough. It was too far from the ropes. D'Lo basically had to step off the ladder onto the top rope and take the bump. And the table was far enough away because there's not a lot of room there. That's part of the issue, too. There's not a lot of room outside the ring between there and the announce table and there and the barricades to do this spot safely. And D'Lo tried to fall through the table, and he mostly missed. He smashed his knee off the table, which somehow did not break. His knee may have broken, but the table didn't. And then he basically bounced off and crashed into the announce table. And that was a fucking insane, like, body breaking spot. And again, this is a spot that should be replayed for the end of time, even in just a, hey, let's throw it up on Botchamania. And mind you, I don't watch Botchamania, but this is not a spot I've ever seen when people are posting all the, oh, look at these botched spots, kind of videos on YouTube. Anyway, to make this even worse, because These are two insane spots. The problem is we are perilously running out of live satellite time. And the finish of the match is more complicated than AJ just gets up, climbs the ladder, and wins the match. They should have called an audible and just done that. Because instead, after that, D'Lo had to immediately get up and, like, dying, get into the ring and climb the ladder on the other side because AJ was now in the ring climbing the ladder, and he had to climb up the other side to where they would both come down with the title belt and to do a draw finish. Like, first of all, an audible needed to be fucking called because the next match is a cage match, right?
Yeah, and that's in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you still could have done that with and just have AJ win the fucking match. But, like, literally, like, I watched this and went, "Oh my God, he's dead." You're telling me nobody backstage could have gone to the referee in the ISB and said, "D'Lo, just lay down and let AJ get the belt, and we'll figure this out later." It's like, instead, D'Lo had to get up, get into the ring, climb to the top of the fucking ladder, and take another bump off the ladder because they both had to bump off of it with the belt. Because the thing is, they both had their hand on the belt. So they both fall off, and then, because I haven't complained during the show, so I had to get all the complaining in here at the end. And then because the fucking match couldn't be about AJ Styles and D'Lo Brown, it couldn't have been about the world title. It was about fucking Vince Russo. Because before Jeremy Borash could even step into the ring to talk to the referee about what the finish is or what the ruling is, Russo's running down, grabbing the world title and screaming at the referee, screaming at Borash, and making the finish all about him because of course he is. And
Because he knows
they
if he
announced,
loses the title, he loses his power.
yeah, well, fuck that. He could have sat fucking backstage and stayed backstage and no one would have given two shits. And he could still have had the same thing. So at the end, Borash doesn't even announce the draw. They just say that because neither of them decisively won or lost the match, AJ Styles is still the world champion. And because again, they are perilously running out of time, the show immediately goes off the air. Now, I also would like to complain that why did this even have to be a discussion? It's a draw. Of course, the champion keeps the title, except we've seen what, at least 3 times where they've done a draw in a title match where they vacated the belt.
Yeah, they held it up. They did it with AMW and Triple X a couple of times.
They do it with Triple X in the New Church because they did that mistimed double pinfall.
Yeah.
They did it with last year when they had AJ and Jerry Lynn versus Jeff Jarrett and The Truth for the World Tag Team titles.
Yep.
They did it there. And I think they did it one other time. But anyway, it's like, fine. They want to make a big deal to say that, hey, I know we just did a draw, but champion retains, right? But this match was nuts. It sucks they could just let the finish happen. It sucks they couldn't just have the finish. Because again, I can't believe that no one told D'Lo Brown to stay the fuck down. Like, that was an insane fucking bump. And if I read that D'Lo fucking fucked up his knee, or fuck, even maybe broke his leg, or busted up his shoulder because he really hit that fucking announce table hard, it's like I would not be surprised to hear any of that. But ultimately, I gave this match a 7.0 out of 10.
I gave it a 7 out of 10 as well. I thought it was a really good match. A lot of great action. Not a fan of the inconclusive finish, but since it's leading us to more AJ versus D'Lo, I am not complaining. Was the worst thing on this show the three life crew segment was the worst thing on the show, bar none.
Indeed.
Trying to think what else we hated the most.
I mean, the closest other thing would be the Legend match, but I mean, that was Uh, that was just a squash match. It wasn't, offensive or anything. Um, but yeah, so that brings us to the end of the show, where surprisingly the most complaining I did was about, the finish of the main event, which, hey, at least that's a step up from when we're usually bitching about, 7/8 of the show. So overall match quality 4.5, overall enjoyment, sit down. I hope you're sitting down for this. 8.0 out of 10. I assume Vince Russo
Wow.
was sick this week when this show was put together. It was an actual good wrestling show and not overbooked to hell. Vince Russo, take notes. You booked a good show that made people want to watch more because it wasn't overbooked as hell. Sure, we could cut out some of the interference because there was interference in every fucking match except one, but you could have just, we can work on that shit. Like this, this was actually a good wrestling show. This is what people would want to actually watch. I didn't watch 30 minutes of Jeff Jarrett and Legend making each other bleed all around the arena for once. I didn't watch the fucking Harris's wrestle for once. It's like, hey, we got a show. We had a series of matches. And hey, what's my biggest complaint with TNA when TNA matches? We can't just have a match where somebody wins, somebody loses, and we move on with our lives. We had a show full of somebody wins, somebody loses, and we move on with our lives. Ladies and
Exactly.
gentlemen, this is proof that God exists, apparently.
And that's
Future
why
build.
That's why Sting talked about it so much in this episode.
Future build, despite the fact that I just praised everything, because there really wasn't anything exceptional that I, check out next week. 5.0 out of 10. It still made me look forward to watching next week's show. They almost accidentally have fallen into booking a good show this week. And so that gives us an overall rating of a 5.83. Congratulations to TNA for, hey, this is like 2 out of 3 shows now they've had that are good.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for the trend to end so we could bitch about it some more. Who
Sure,
knows when
that'll
it
be
will
next
happen?
week.
Oh yeah, because we get
Um,
Sandman versus Edward Chastain.
Yippee ki Melon Farmer. Yippee
Exactly.
ki All right, so that's gonna pretty much do it for this week's episode. It was certainly a show, you know. And hey, we went 90 minutes and I barely cussed. That's almost a win. But
That never happens on your podcast.
yes. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this week's program. Anything you want to plug before we go? What game shows are being aired on Amazon this week?
Uh, Not a lot, but I've been playing a lot of Bloodstained, Ritual of the Moon, the Castlevania Symphony of the Night clone that Koga Igarashi put out via Kickstarter. I finally got around to playing it. It is goddamn good.
That certainly sounds like a thing. Well, thank you all for listening. Hope you all enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you again in or around 7 days.
Now, if you excuse me, I need to get to sleep. I got work in the morning.
Holla.